Hello, Seekers and Sages. My name is Zhang Wutian, Stone Sage of the Old Dynasty, Master of the Ancient Arts, Lord of Forgotten Wisdom. Now, today I'd like to talk about the latest Marvel Cinematic Action movie, Marvel Cinematic Universe action movie to hit the silver screen, Shang-Chi Legend of the Ten Rings. In the latest outing from Marvel, it promises to be a thrilling action movie and Marvel's take on Kung Fu within the MCU, right? Alright, so it stars Awkwafina of Crazy Rich Asian fame, Simu Liu of Kim's Convenience fame as the titular Shang-Chi. Okay? So, this movie also features Hong Kong movie legends like Michelle Yeoh and the King of Hong Kong acting himself, Tony Leung. So when I first heard that Shang-Chi was going to be made, I was actually quite excited. Kung Fu as a martial art has always had a superhuman, legendary aspect to it, right? From the mystical, legendary exploits of the Shaolin monks to the nigh godlike status of Bruce Lee. All right. So bringing in an obscure Kung Fu Marvel action hero to the forefront of the MCU, he has so much potential. All right. So consider all the wuxia and xianxia heroes that us in Asia had. Wuxia being martial arts fiction, xianxia being martial arts god and demon fantasy. Right, all these superhuman elements. It would fit in so well with modern superheroes. Just imagine Yang Guo, Xiaolongnu, just soaring across the sky using their trademark gentleman and lady sword to fend off the Chitauri in New York or in Beijing or Shanghai or something. Just imagine the scene. Or maybe Sun Wukong soaring through the skies, fighting with Thor or something. Just imagine Wu Xian Xianxia, the of the kung fu action genre. So much potential. All right. Now, when I first saw the trailer, I got extremely worried. All right, I got extremely worried. The action choreography in the trailer it actually looks good, but it looks very, very Hollywood. Oh, throat is a bit dry. Drink some tea. All right, I'm back. Okay. Where was I? Right. The action choreography was very, very Hollywood. Very, very Hollywood. The style of action, it looks like it would fit a Jason Bourne or Mission Impossible movie rather than a Kung Fu movie. Well, Simu Liu, he looked pretty good in the trailer. There was something off about him. It just doesn't click. Something doesn't seem right. Like, he doesn't seem like a Kung Fu hero. He just lacks the charisma, he lacks the swagger, he lacks the energy of a Kung Fu hero. Also, with the revelation of his enemy, the bad guy is gonna be his father, a villainous character named Wen Wu. Was it Wen Wu? Wen Wu? I can't remember. Wen Wu, a criminal overlord, martial artist, master of the Ten Rings. Yeah, that made me very concerned. Okay, so because I saw two things that made me concerned. Right. First off, I immediately saw this as a typical Marvel formula movie. In case anyone is still wondering what the heck a Marvel formula movie, let me just run it through with you. It starts off like this. Protagonist is a flawed person with great talent. They experience a bad situation. They find a mentor figure who guides them with some wisdom lesson to become a better person, and they make it through the bad situation. After that, mentor figure gets killed or removed in some manner or form. They just get removed. It might be the hero's fault. It might not. It's hard to say. All right. So the hero after that learns to be a better person using the lessons that the mentor figure taught them, and they have to fight the bad guy who has the exact same power set as they do, or a similar enough power set, but is slightly stronger. So they use that lesson, the borrow lesson, and defeat the bad guy, and moves on to fight maybe an optional boss, and then they save the day and become a superhero. That's the Marvel Formula movie. It's been the same since from Iron Man, the first Iron Man movie, all the way up to Doctor Strange. It's been the same. Almost all of the Marvel Cinematic Universe hero origin story. They've all been the same. It's all the same. So it gets pretty passe. It gets really boring. Now, the second thing I saw, which I suspected, I saw the potential makings of something I really, really hate. I call this the Asian American I love our culture but hate our tradition story. Okay, tell me if you heard this one before. An Asian American kid grows up with repressive traditionalist Asian parents. The plot complications born from traditional repressive traditions. It happens. The Asian American kid, goes on a journey of self discovery and they embrace their American values and solve the problematic Asian tradition using American values and save the day. And then they gain the respect of their parents, bring them to a brighter future full of truth, justice, freedom, and American way. Have you heard this one before? I might be presuming a little bit too much, so I decided to give the movie a try, and this is what I saw. Okay, I'm going to divide the review into two parts. Okay, so this video will be the non-spoiler section, and I will record a spoiler section, a spoiler video, maybe tomorrow, day after tomorrow, whenever I'm free. Alright, so here, regarding my low expectation of the film, my expectations were shattered in more ways than one. Alright? My presumption about the entire Asian American hate my tradition, love my culture, hate my tradition thing, I presume too much. I was just full of shit, right? That's a good thing, right? That should be a good thing, right? Turns out it really wasn't. It really wasn't, and I was a bit surprised. Why? Because instead of a hero's journey to promote Americana values over traditional Asian values, we didn't really get a hero journey. We didn't really get a hero's journey at all. Like, instead of American values or traditional Asian values, we get confused values and a confused character growth. So it's weird because instead of promoting one value or another value, or just promoting a value in general, I have absolutely no idea what the value or the lesson of the movie was. All right, let's I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, so let's get the obvious out of the way. Every Asian moviegoer would be asking, at least every East Asian moviegoer, like Asians from Asia, we will be asking ourselves, or they'll be asking me, how was Tony Leung in this movie? I am pleased to tell you, Tony Leung's Wenwu, without a doubt, is the best thing in this movie. He is the best thing in this movie. Tony Leung lives up to his reputation as Hong Kong's greatest actor. He owns every scene he's in, his presence, his charisma, every second he's on screen, it's powerful. Even the scenes where he just speaks softly, he doesn't really, he speaks softly or he doesn't speak, but his presence is felt. He's a very well-written character. Tony, good job to the writing team for crafting Wenwu in such a wonderful way, shedding away the problematic comic book origins, because he would have been based on two characters in Marvel, namely the Mandarin and Fu Manchu, both racist caricatures. Done away with that, completely gone. Wenwu is a Chinese character, one that you can fall in love with, and you should fall in love with, because Tony Leung's performance was nuanced, he was emotive, he was just chef's kiss. Wonderful acting. Now, in the fight scenes, he was also brilliant. Alright? The choreography for his fight scenes, not necessarily the best, but his ability to move, to perform those scenes, wonderful. Tony Leung's Wenwu, top tier. Now, a breakout star for me from this movie. It surprised me, I didn't expect this. Zhang Menge's performance as Xu Xialing, the sister of the main character. Now, if you want a strong female character done right in an MCU, bye bye Captain Marvel, fuck off Black Widow, get out of the way, get out of Xu Xialing's way, because she, as Shang-Chi and Wenwu affectionately call her, Ling Ling, is the new queen on the block. She's strong and vulnerable, rooted in her culture and traditions, but also flexible enough to find her own way forward. One of the greatest crimes about this movie is how little screen time she got. She should have gotten way more screen time, right? They should have given her way more time, made her develop her even more than they already did. Because they did give her some screen time, they should have given her more. give her more. Because Zhang Menge's ability to showcase the different sides of her character, her strengths, her vulnerability, her emotions, it left a very strong impact on me with what little screen time she got. Top tier. Good job. Wonderful. Now, okay, here's the thing. Credit where credit is due, alright? Among my friends, I have made my dislike of Awkwafina quite well known. I really do not like and I do not appreciate her general disdain for old school traditions, right? As a Chinese man, I like my traditions. As an Asian in Asia, I like my traditions. Now, I'm not saying you can't modernize. Just because you're modernizing doesn't mean you're westernizing, but the way she Americanizes herself has gone way beyond making herself a living caricature and a living parody. I don't like it. But you do you. Awkwafina, if you want to do that, you go ahead. I mean, like, who am I to judge you? I'm just a stone statue. Now, here's the thing. She actually does surprisingly well in this movie. Her comedy routine with her typical Awkwafina rubbish, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. But when her character, Katie, when Katie gets serious, when her character gets serious, and she has to tone it down, she has to play the straight person for once. She has to be serious. The scene's a little bit more emotional now. She actually does a really good job. When she gets to play the serious role, and you just sprinkle a little bit, just pepper a little bit of her comedy, it made her character and it made her genuinely a lot more likable and endearing. So going forward, I really like to see Awkwafina be challenged with more serious emotional roles, because I think she has shown great potential here. Alright? So good job, Awkwafina. One final shout out, and I'm very happy to say this. Andy Le as the Death Dealer, or as I call him, the Blue Masked Ninja, one of Wenwu's top 10 Rings assassins. So if you're wondering who Andy Le is, he is one of the people on the YouTube channel Martial Club, the Martial Club. They are amazing martial arts performers. They pay so much homage to Hong Kong Kung Fu cinema, right? And in the scenes where Andy gets to perform, his kung fu, his skills shine. They shine bright, right? So the fight scenes which Andy, his Death Dealer, the Blue Ninja, is in, the fight scene was a highlight for me. It's a highlight, one of the highlights of the film. The choreography was great, and he really showed. He popped off. It was some of the best martial arts in the movie. I loved every second he was in. And even in the scenes where he's not fighting, he will be wearing a mask. You never see his face. The only part of his face you see is his eyes. But even with just his eyes, he acted. You could feel it. He acted so well, and it's just you can only see his eyes. Extremely underrated performer. I hope the MCU brings in the martial clubs. I hope the martial club gets brought into all future MCU movies, because anything they do, and they have proven what they can do in Shang-Chi, anything they can do is golden. It's great. It's amazing. So please, if you have the time, check out their YouTube channel, The Martial Club. Congratulations, Martial Club, for making it to the big leagues. I wish you all the success, because you did good work here. I want to see more of it in the big screens. Now, give me a sip of my tea again. Hot tea, perfect. Okay, so this is where all my praises for the movie ends. This is all the praise I have. That's it. At least for the non-spoiler section, that's all the praise I have. Because the rest of the movie, whatever I saw, other than the things I've really praised, everything else is painfully average. Painfully average. The pacing of the film was extremely awkward, because there was an over-reliance on flashback scenes, which they use to throw expositions. Now, I'm usually fine with a flashback scene or two, but there was a certain point which it started to feel like they are using it way too many times. It bogs down the pace of the movie, it bogs down the flow. It wouldn't have been so much of a problem though, if the flashbacks built up to something that paid off. It did not. The reason it did not pay off is something I was speaking about way at the start of this review. the character development for Shang-Chi, the main character, it made no sense to me. It really made no sense to me. So in general, when we are talking about the hero's journey, the hero's origin story, we expect, a flawed character to learn to overcome whatever issues or flaws they have, and by the end of the story, they will be a better person. The Marvel Formula movie, generally speaking, codifies how to get through it in the most generic way. So maybe people are trying to break the mold. Unfortunately for this movie, they broke the mold so much that I don't know what they're trying to make. Because I still have no idea what Shang-Chi's issues actually are. Or why they were issues. Like, so if this is an issue, why is it an issue? And the worst part is, how did you even resolve it? Like, at a certain point of the movie, Shang-Chi just found his problems resolved, like his internal discord has been resolved, and he's just a better person by the end. But why? But why? I don't understand. I don't understand. So, like, it's a terrible issue because if I can't understand what his issues are, I can't understand how it's solved. And because I can't understand how it's resolved, all the flashback scenes, and there were so many of them, dedicated to this part of the story, this part of the plot, the undercurrent of the storyline, Shang-Chi's character development, it just doesn't pay off because I don't understand why. And I can't discuss more of it without spoilers. So I have to discuss this in the next video, but really, dedicating so much time to character development that does not pay off because it's flawed. It's a waste of movie time, it's a waste of screen time. Screen time that could have been dedicated to other characters, to better world building, to so many other things. Now, one other factor I found to be really, really bugging me is the representation of Asian culture. So now, I found the representation of Asian culture in this movie to be extremely superficial and surface level. They show things, but they never really go deeper. They never really show. Let me just quote a famous line in the MCU. They showed us why is Asian culture. No, I got that wrong. They showed us what is Asian culture. They don't show us why is Asian culture. Right? Now, you might think I'm just kidding here, but I'm quite serious. Because I found it to be very... Okay, I'm going to say something really politically incorrect here. Alright? The people who say that this movie is a good representation of Chinese culture, it's probably because their understanding of the Chinese culture is as shallow as how the movie shows it to be. I'm saying this. Their understanding of Chinese culture is as shallow as how they showed it to be in the movie. Now, I understand there are people who disagree with me, but one thing I have found, and I'm gonna, again, very politically incorrect and possibly extremely offensive thing for me to say, but even for plenty of the people who say that this is a good representation of Chinese culture, they are generally speaking, as we say it here, 假干当. People who eat more potatoes than rice. Effectively, they may be Asian, but they're white as heck. And they don't really get it. So this is how I feel. I will explain more about this in the spoiler section, the spoiler video. But it's shallow as fuck. Now, here's the other weird thing, and I found it odd, but like maybe someone else can correct me on this because, like, this is, I'm not completely sure about this, right? So other than one particular character and the narration, the Mandarin dub, or at least the way Mandarin is spoken in this movie, Chinese Mandarin, it's very bland. It's almost as if they were trying their hardest to remove the accents in the language and create a generic sounding, a generic sounding Chinese. It's weird. It's really weird. That's how I felt. I'm not sure whether it's just I don't know. It's just weird to me. It feels like they're trying to create a zero accent the way Hollywood created a zero accent English, right? I've never heard a Chinese person, whether they're from the mainland or East Asia or Southeast Asia, from Hong Kong, Taiwan, Malaysia, Singapore. I've never heard anyone speak Mandarin Chinese the way they spoke Mandarin Chinese in this movie. It's strange. It's almost as if they're trying to create it for the Asian Americans who can't really speak Mandarin. That is how it feels like, alright? Now, here comes the meat and potatoes. Here comes the one thing that I found really bad about this movie. The weakest link in Shang-Chi is the lead actor Simu Liu himself. Now, this has to be the weakest performance from a lead actor in any MCU movie so far. His acting was as stiff as his kung fu, and is extremely detrimental to the film, given how he is the lead and his character is supposed to be the master of kung fu. Simu Liu is simply not a very expressive actor. His face, he has only one face, or two faces maybe, but for most of the movie he only has one face, and that lack of facial expression is really. It just makes him really boring to watch. It makes it difficult for him to showcase different emotions in the serious scenes, right? He tends to have this singular blank expression, and through this blank expression, he's trying to showcase and display anger, sadness, conflict, regret. I don't feel it. I can't feel it. Absolutely no. He just puts on a boring face, which is the exact same face that he has in the fucking poster. And he just has that one face, and we're supposed to assume his emotions. You might as well just take the poster and just paste it on his face throughout the entire movie. You won't be missing anything. To watch him act is simply boring, and that is horrible because he's acting opposite an acting legend, Tony Leung, Tony Leung could show so much emotion with just a look in his eye. He doesn't need to emote, he just acts with his eyes. And you can feel the emotion from Tony Leung. Meanwhile, you have I'm a stone statue, and I'm more emotive than Simu Liu throughout the entire movie. Okay, now. Maybe I'm being too harsh, right? Maybe I'm being too harsh. I'm comparing him to a living legend. Huh? So maybe I shouldn't be comparing Simu Liu to Tony Leung. Let's compare him to another actor in the movie itself. Hey, let's see. Arnold Sun, the guy who plays teenage Shang-Chi in the flashbacks. Every scene he's in, it's extremely intense. The amount of emotions in his eyes, with the little bit of lines that he has had. His presence in every scene is powerful. And countless times where I'm watching this young actor play teenage Shang-Chi, I'm just thinking to myself, why not just cast him as Shang-Chi? He's so much better than Simu Liu. Now don't get me wrong, Simu Liu's acting is not without merit. He has some good performances. In two scenes in particular, scenes at the start of the first act and the epilogue, where it's just scenes of slice of life moments, before the calm before the storm and after everything has been resolved, scenes where you guys get comical, a little bit of chit chat. Now he was good in those scenes. He was charming and good in those scenes. Unfortunately, those scenes were less than 1% of his screen time, and most of the scenes he's in are serious scenes which he completely fell flat. Now let's talk about his kung fu. His kung fu is just, no. I'm sorry. This guy is not a kung fu guy. Now Shang-Chi is supposed to be the master of kung fu, but Simu Liu's mastery of kung fu, he just didn't show any mastery at all. His movements lacked fluidity, his kinetic chain didn't flow, his stances and shapes were off and awkward, it doesn't seem like anything is aligned. Now, this might be okay if he's in a generic American action movie. That might be fine. But he's acting opposite legends, veterans of the Kung Fu genre. He's acting opposite Michelle Yeoh. He's acting opposite Tony Leung. You know, when you compare them and they're on screen together, Simu Liu just doesn't look good. He just looks bad. Because his Kung Fu is bad. Now, according to interviews, Simu Liu has background in Taekwondo, gymnastics, and Wing Chun. Supposedly for this movie, he has trained and picked up Tai Chi Silat, Street Fighting Wushu, Muay Thai, Krav Maga, boxing, and a couple of others, I guess. He's trained all that just for this movie. And I would say, frankly, he might as well have learned fuck all. Because none of it showed. This is a case of jack of all trades and master of none. Because if he's learned and studied everything, but it doesn't look like he's a master of a single thing. And his character is Shang-Chi, the master of Kung Fu. That is the title of this character in the Marvel Comics. Shang-Chi, the master of Kung Fu. Why not just learn Kung Fu? Why do you learn why do you dabble in a little bit of everything? Just master one thing, because the character is one thing. So like in one of the interview, Simu Liu said that he doesn't want to just go do Kung Fu because it's just stereotypical. Excuse me, so it's stereotypical for a Chinese guy to do Kung Fu? Kung Fu is part of our heritage. And your character is the master of Kung Fu. It's the character. Play the character. Act as your character. You don't change the master of Kung Fu, Shang-Chi, the master of Kung Fu, to Shang-Chi, kind of good at Muay Thai, pretty decent at Tai Chi, not that good at at Krav Maga. No, he's the master of Kung Fu. Act as the master of Kung Fu. Train Kung Fu. Now, as a Kung Fu man myself, maybe the things I see is not what the things average moviegoers see. I can imagine plenty of American audiences will think, hey, this guy is really, really good. Because it's the small things. He's a good action star. I would say if this was just a generic action movie, he would be a great action star. It's just Kung Fu. Doesn't feel right. The Kung Fu doesn't feel right. The energy is wrong. The chain is wrong. The fluidity is wrong. He's so stiff. He's not relaxed. He's not nimble. He's not explosive. He's fast, but not explosive. There's a big difference. Fast and explosiveness. Fast powers, explosive power. It's hard to explain. You just got to do it to know it. Now, I compare the stiffness of his movement to Keanu Reeves in The Matrix. So, okay, here's the thing. In most moviegoers were extremely impressed with Keanu Reeves' Kung Fu when he was acting as Neo in The Matrix. But he was pretty stiff in that. The one fight scene in which you can really tell how stiff he is compared to an actual guy who knows Kung Fu is Neo versus Saraf. Keanu Reeves against Colin Cho, right? If you see the way Colin Cho moves and the way Keanu Reeves move, you can see that there is a certain fluidity, there's a certain nimbleness, there's a certain flow and energy to the way Colin Cho moves, while Keanu Reeves' Neo moves pretty robotically. He's pretty stiff. There is a lack of I can only think the lack of flow that comes with experience, but it makes sense. Because Neo learned his Kung Fu through the Matrix, not through organic experience with Kung Fu. So, in a way, his stiffness helped his character in the Matrix. Simu Liu does not have that benefit with Shang-Chi. Again, Shang-Chi is supposed to be the master of Kung Fu. He should move and fight like a Kung Fu master. But he moves like a karate white belt. Okay, maybe I'm being harsh. Again, maybe I'm just being harsh. Shang-Chi, Simu Liu, he trained hard for this movie. He trained really hard. maybe he just didn't have time to actually get good. Sorry, but no cigar. Some of his co-stars had less time to train than he does, and they had less background in martial arts than he does. Zhang Meng'er, who plays his sister, and Fa La Chen, who plays his mother, they had 4 months and 1 month to train for their respective roles, respectively. So, so Zhang Meng'er had 4 months, and Fa La Chen had 1 month. Both of them had no martial arts background before they came to work on this movie. But they both came out looking like they were masters of Tai Chi. They had lesser time to train, they had lesser background in martial arts, but they came out looking way better than Simu. What do I think happened? There is a good chance that an empty cup is easier to fill than a cup that is half filled that refuses to accept more tea. Speaking of tea, so I'm sorry but no cigar, Sumu. You just nah. And I have one last point. The final act was just pathetic and sad. Now, a lot of people might think that, the final act is pretty. Yes, I would say it's pretty. They did show a lot of things. It's also pretty fucking lame. It was just creatively bankrupt. There were so many things that they could have done with the final scene, the final climatic action scene, but they did not. They did not. What should have been something huge and epic felt like something I would see at the schoolyard during recess. It was just sad. I can't say more here because there will be spoilers. But that final battle thing was just lame. It was just lame. It was pathetic. So let me sum up. What do I think of Shang-Chi? Don't spend your money on this. Don't spend your money on Shang-Chi. Just wait for it to come out on Disney+. I do not think this movie is worth spending money to watch in theaters. I do not think this movie is worth risking COVID-19 to watch in the theaters. I would rate this movie a 5.5 out of 10. 5.5 out of 10. That is my rating for this movie. However, there is one reason to watch this movie in theaters. I can only think of one reason why we should watch this movie in theaters. And that actually gives me, I feel conflicted about this. But I have to acknowledge one reason to watch this in theaters. To support Tony Leung in his first big MCU Hollywood film. The only reason to watch this movie in theaters is to support Tony Leung. In fact, if you have to watch this movie, even if you don't listen to anything I say, if you have to watch this movie, please listen to just one thing I have to say. Do not think of this movie as Shang-Chi Legend of the Ten Rings. You would enjoy this movie 10 times more if you think of Tony Leung and Wenwu as the main character instead of Shang-Chi. Think of this as Wenwu Legend of the Ten Rings. Shang-Chi Legend of the Ten Rings, 5.5 out of 10. Wenwu Legend of the Ten Rings. Just flip that switch in your mind and turn Wenwu into the main character. Immediately, 6.5, 7 out of 10. That is my judgment. That is Tian's judgment. So I have passed my judgment on this movie. I'll see you in the spoiler section. Maybe tomorrow or day after tomorrow. Whenever I'm free to record. I'll see you guys next time.